This is Fox 18 Sports Sunday in high definition.
Welcome back to Fox 18 Sports Sunday. We're rejoined by Hawkeye insider David Eickholt. Now, before the break, we were talking about the Hawkeyes' big win over Illinois. It was their 8th straight win over the Illini. What do you think has gone into this streak over this period of time, and how has the Hawkeyes gotten it done?
You know, I do think a couple things. One, I think after a certain amount of wins, it just becomes a mental game. I mean, that's why I picked Iowa over Iowa State, despite, Iowa State having a lot of momentum heading into the season. It really is just a mental block at this point. And I do think also Iowa does a tremendous job of recruiting Illinois, and one of the big things that Fighting Illini fans have been, just begging for is to be able to lock down their borders and keep the top prospects in state. But you look at, who Iowa has on their roster. I mean, Lucas Van Ness has been a big deal this year. Sam Laporta was an under-the-radar guy from small-town Illinois. I believe he's the second leading receiver in state history. So Iowa continues to pluck top talent out of Illinois and keep them out of the Fighting Illini uniforms. And I do think that, Iowa and A.J. Epinesa, I don't know how I could forget him and what he did over his Iowa career and blocking the punt against Illinois. I do think, though, it's a combination of that, and it's just a mental game. I think once Illinois can break through, and I do think that they have a really, really good coach in Brett Bielema, I think there's a lot of momentum within that program, and I'm interested to see how that sort of develops over the next couple of years. I mean, that's been his #1 priority as well, keeping top prospects in state. So I think if both those things sort of happen, it could get interesting. It could get interesting, but I do think they're about 2 years away from that. But again, I do think that the Illinois Fighting Illini, I think they're going to put a lot of time and a lot of trust in Brett Bielema and spare no expense. And if you're trying to build a program in the Big Ten, you kind of have to do that. I mean, we're seeing what's happening with Michigan State right now with Mel Tucker, potential 10-year, $95 million contract, despite entering the season 7-12 as an FBS head coach.
Now, football season isn't over, but hoop season is here. So let's talk about a little college basketball. The Iowa men's team is off to a great start, 4-0. What do you think their chances are to make the tournament this year? Because it's not the same team that they had last year. They don't have the same kind of firepower, but they still have a good team.
I think it's so hard to take away a lot from these first 4 games. When you look at the caliber of competition, let's face it, it's not great. But a couple things I do think that people need to keep in mind. Keegan Murray, I mean, enjoy him, folks, because he's playing right now like an NBA lottery pick. I mean, what he's doing has been unbelievable. I think this team's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be the most unique team in the Fran McCaffrey era. But I do think that there's going to be times where people are frustrated because they don't have the firepower of Joe Wieskamp, National Player of the Year, Luka Garza, C.J. Frederick, Jack Nungy. I mean, all these guys are now departed. But I think you look at Jordan Bohannon coming back for his 6th year. I think that's a big deal. I think Chris Murray is going to come into his own. Joe Toussaint, I think, has taken a big step forward as far as what he's done at the point guard. Philip Rabracha. It's going to be a fun, athletic team. I think more than anything else, Patrick McCaffrey, I think, showing some nice signs as well. As far as making the tournament, I think we're going to find out in the next 2 weeks because they go at Virginia, who was upset early in the year, but, Tony Bennett's going to have those guys ready. Then they go, I believe, at Purdue, host Illinois, and then they go to Iowa State. So you talk about a very, very early season test. If Iowa can even split that and go 2-2, I think that's a big, big sign that this team has that capability. But I do think that they'll lose the teams they shouldn't. I think they're going to upset a few teams, but I think more than anything else, it's going to be a different team than Iowa fans have been used to seeing. And it's kind of funny that we talk about three-point shooting being a big question mark. They just broke the single game record for most three-pointers with 20 against Alabama State. But it's worth noting the 2 previous games, they went 9 of 39 from three-point range. So they're going to get hot. They're going to be cold. But I think it will be entertaining basketball nonetheless. But let's face it, at the end of the day, what's going to come down to? Defense. It's exactly what came down to last year and the last couple of years under Fran McCaffrey teams. But they're more athletic. I think the ceiling's higher on defense. But we'll see what happens when they really start going up against the big dogs.
Yeah, they got a gauntlet coming up is what you were talking about. Yeah. Jordan Bohannon, the king of threes, the all-time leader in the Big Ten and three-pointers. What can we expect out of him this year? And do you think he's become that leader that the team needs?
I do think that Jordan Bohannon is being that leader. I think I go back to what I heard him talk about after he announced he was coming back. He called Joe Toussaint right away and said, hey, I'm going to play the shooting guard. It's your time now at point guard. Because you got to think about it. Joe Toussaint came into Iowa thinking he was a one-year guy, and then he was going to take over the starting job as a sophomore. Jordan Bohannon plays 10 games when Joe Toussaint's a true freshman. Toussaint starts. Next year, Toussaint's the backup. And then he hears all of a sudden, oh, Jordan Bohannon's coming back. Okay, well, am I going to spend my 3rd year kind of not being the guy? So I do think that just from a leadership perspective, him calling Toussaint, saying, this is your team, I'm here to help you, I think that was a big deal. And Jordan Bohannon, it's kind of funny, everybody jokes about him being the 6th-year guy and being the grandpa of the league. Yep. He wanted me to point out 2 things. One, Philip Rebracha is the same age as Jordan Bohannon, and Philip has another year of eligibility. And, you know, the king of three-pointers in Big Ten, John Diebler, played 330 more minutes than Jordan Bohannon, and they had the same amount of threes. So, you know, Diebler did play more minutes than Jordan Bohannon before the record. And remember, Jordan Bohannon has played hurt most of his career. So what he's been able to do, it's been really kind of unbelievable to watch. I think more people appreciate after. And I'd still classify Jordan as a combo guard because he is Iowa's all-time assist leader. But let's face it, him going to the 2 guard is such a big deal to this team. I mean, he can launch up as many threes as he wants to. Iowa fans get their drive and kick out point guard in Joe Toussaint. And I do think that if Iowa is going to be able to take that next step into this year, it's going to be 3-point shooting, it's going to be defense. Jordan Bohannon brings one of the 2, but I do think that with the athleticism, they can sort of make up for that. But I do think it's a perfect fit, Jordan Bohannon moving into that off-guard spot.
Now, Jordan and the men's team are definitely fun to watch, but fans might be even more excited to see the women's team this year with so many ladies coming back, like All-American Caitlin Clark. What are you expecting out of them? I mean, they may have a great shot to compete for a national title this year. What do you think?
I mean, it's almost like the men's team, right? It's going to come down to defense. Now, it is disappointing for them. Lisa Bluter was going to have an opportunity to go for 800th career win today against Drake, but there's some COVID issues within the program, and then they're not going to be able to go Cancun and play Seton Hall and USC, which would have been 2, I think, very fun contests. But Gary Barta is optimistic that Iowa will be able to travel to Duke, which will be a primetime ESPN game next week. I believe it's December 2nd, so we'll kind of get a glimpse of what they can do there. But 99% of the scoring returning, they got Iowa State transfer Kylie Feuerbach, who I think is going to be a really, really good player for them. Monica Cesano, Caitlin Clark, who I think is the best player in the country, National Player of the Year caliber. You're right. I mean, they're going to be a very, very fun team to watch, but the talent disparity in women's basketball, I think it's so huge. And Iowa's got to do a great job of boxing out, and they're going to have to play defense. And from what I've seen early, I think they switched up some things schematically on defense, but it's going to be just very interesting to watch. And I do think that if people are thinking about going to a game, I mean, Caitlin Clark is as box office as it gets, I think, in any sport across the college sports landscape. So we'll see. Like you said, national title. I do think that they have a very, very high ceiling. I think they could be a Final Four caliber team.
Yeah, and the great thing is, Coach Bluter, she will get her 800th win at some point this year, even though she's not going to get that today. All right, I want to thank David Eickholt for coming in. And again, this guy knows his stuff when it comes to the Hawkeyes, so if you get a chance, follow him on Twitter, and he'll keep you up to date with all of it. And you can also keep up with everything with Hawkeyes on ourquadcities.com, so you want to make sure you check that out. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back here on Fox 18 Sports Sunday.